Welcome to another episode of Brace for Impact, covering all things Impact Wrestling. Back from the dead, like Eric Young, live from No Cell Studios on the Ace of Tavern, Acefield Retro. And as always, join on a Thursday night or Friday morning if you listen to us on audio at Mall.Mania, the Kentucky Waterfall himself. Colton, what's up, dude?
What's going on, brother? Man, good to be back. Thanks for holding it down in my absence last week while I got out and enjoyed an outdoor concert at 98 degrees Fahrenheit at 10 p.m. last week.
I guess it's better than seeing 98 degrees
Far
live
better.
concert, right?
Far better than seeing 98 degrees at any temperature.
Well, guys, we are back covering all things Impact. We have a lot of stuff to cover for you as we build towards Multiverse United, the New Japan Pro Wrestling show in Philly, and also Emergence, which feels like it's going to be a big deal, Colton. There's a lot on the table here for Impact Wrestling. They've turned that corner after Slammiversary. There's a lot to be said about the difference between the build to Slammiversary and then kind of turning the page where we no longer have Nick Aldis. There's other stories being told, and the main event seat is as crowded as ever.
Yeah, most definitely. And we're already setting Emergence up really nicely tonight. I mean, we announced a lot of the matches already. I mean, we're still solid 3 weeks out from this show, but we've already got a lot on the card. So, and AEW not the only promotion having big shows within a week of each other. So, we've got the Multiverse United show on the 20th, and then just 5 days later we've got Emergence. So exciting time, exciting summer to be an Impact fan.
So there's a lot of Impact news to break down, and the best place to do it is in our segment that we call so lovingly The Insight. Let's get into it.
The Insight.
All right, so the first news we had here, and of course we saw it kind of come to life on the screen in front of us tonight, but a tournament will determine the next challengers for Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster's Impact Tag Team Championship. So we know these as eliminator tournaments. AEW kind of coined the phrase, but here we are in Impact seeing this concept. And before we get into the breakdown of it, your thoughts on this coming to life on screen to determine the next contenders? Because you and I probably would have thought it's either the Rascals or ABC again, but it seems like they're trying to get another team to rise up to the level of subculture.
Yeah, and I like that idea, because it gets to showcase everybody that we've got in the tag division. It gets everybody some time, some repetitions. ABC already had their rematch, and it was foiled by the Rascals. So, I like the idea of a tournament, man. It gets to, like I said, get exposure for everybody, maybe get to try out some new teams like we have with Bailey and Gresham, and, gets plenty of tag action between now and the next pay-per-view.
So the tournament's set to feature 4 teams. We saw the first round, as we'll talk about tonight, the Rascals, Mike Bailey and John Gresham, Rich Swann and Sammy Callahan, and ABC, Ace Austin and Chris Bay. So it began tonight with Rascals and Bailey and Gresham. And of course, we'll talk about all the finish and how awesome that match was. But the team that will win this tournament will get their tag team title shot at Emergence on Sunday, August 27th, a week after the Multiverse show. And this will be on the Impact Plus app. This is not going to be a pay-per-view. This is either going to be Impact Plus, it's going to be Impact's Ultimate Insiders, a YouTube service, or Fight TV. So if you're subscribed in any capacity to those things, this will be one of those premium live events on that end of things. And if you're going to be purchasing a pay-per-view, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the Multiverse show is going to be able to be consumed that way.
Yeah, it looks like it.
So we are also going to be having a lot to be said about what's coming up down the pike, because Emergence looks like it's shaping up to be a really good night of action. And the card so far, we don't know Sonata's opponent, but we do know he'll be in action. And you and I were discussing for this Multiverse show, and for it to have any sort of weight, not having the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion in town for that, it kind of takes a little bit of steam away, but makes sense that they're advertising it for the week after. He's going to be in action some way. We understand he's probably going to get a win. So we'll see Sonata here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, at what they're calling the Rebel Entertainment Complex for Emergence. But we also have Trinity defending against Deanna Praza for the Knockouts Championship. And we have a 6-man tag match on dock for Alex Shelley, Kushida, Chris Sabin, and Josh Alexander versus Bully Ray, Moose, Brian Myers, and LIO RUSH. That is an 8-man tag. I need to learn an account over here. And the Knockouts Tag Team Championship, MK Ultra, a.k.a. Mosh Slamovich and Killer Kelly, taking on Giselle Shaw and Savannah Evans. So pretty stacked card. I mean, they're really building out. I mean, August 27th is at this point 20 something days away and 3 weeks and change. A lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not often that 3 weeks out from a pay-per-view card, we've got almost what looks to be probably close to half the card already set up, which is nice. We've still got a lot to add, but we've got we know what we're getting, and we're already seeing those stories being built on weekly TV like we did tonight. So yeah, it's gonna be a good show.
But before that week, we also have, as we mentioned before, the Impact New Japan Pro Wrestling Multiverse United show from the 2300 Arena, aka the ECW Arena in Philly. This will be the second annual show. Hopefully, they're going to be making a similar Forbidden Door for AEW. It will be a annual event on their behalf. And we had an interesting thing here where former Impact Knockouts champion Deonna Purrazzo, we know she might be Impact champion coming up the week after that, but she challenged a New Japan Pro Wrestling and Stardom talent to send their best for this month's Impact and New Japan Multiverse show. We can name some names, and we can also talk about some of the other people that may be there, but your thoughts on them kind of extending the olive branch to Stardom, New Japan Pro Wrestling to bring some of their best in an open challenge format?
I like it, man. And my first thought after a Slammiversary with Trinity taking the belt off of Purrazzo is, what's next for Deonna? And I was like, maybe she's going to take a little time off. She's had the nice long title run. I like that she's staying right in the mix, man, and calling out, Stardom stars and New Japan stars. I think it's fantastic. She's obviously going to get her contractual rematch. Sounds like at Emergence, but yeah, this is I'm liking this potential crossover of talent here. Why keep it to just one show once a year when we can have it all the time?
So on her path to win that Knockouts championship, she was a part of last year's inaugural show, defeating Giselle Shaw, Masa Slamovich, and Yameshja in a four-way number one contenders match, which was awesome to see last year. And I'm interested to see who winds up going against Deonna Purrazzo. There's a lot of dream matchups we can think of. I know that Julia and Trinity have kind of circled on their calendar that they want to work together. But who knows? Maybe they do this here and they kind of save that Julia bullet for somewhere else, because Trinity and Julia is kind of a dream match if that's going to be happening on a main stage. I know, for me, seeing Julia here in the States, I think she's destined. And we talked about this on Wrestling Tonight. I think by the time she gets over here, the American fans get used to her. I think she's not going anywhere. I think similar to Asuka, she's going to become a mainstay. And I think, Stardom and New Japan Pro Wrestling should enjoy her while she's over there, because I think it's only a matter of time before she's here consistently. And Impact might be that platform for her, but not sure if it's right here for Deonna Purrazzo, but maybe it is. I think it might be a nice segue into kind of introducing her into the American audience.
Yeah, and I'd like to see her introduced up against somebody other than Trinity, because I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Trinity and Julia is definitely a dream match. But hard to say who's going to win that one. And like you said, it's probably pretty certain she's going to be spending some more time in the States once everybody's familiar with her. So let's ease her in with Deonna. I like it.
So on the Multiverse United show, we have two matches that are announced. And of course, you can kind of include the Deonna Purrazzo Open Challenge, similar to the Sonata thing at the Emergence show. We have the X Division champion LIO RUSH and Trey Miguel teaming up to take on Hiromu Takahashi and Mike Bailey. And of course, we have the Impact World Championship on the line, Alex Shelley versus the Ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi. So worth buying. I understand that, being so close together, and there was the controversy with All In and All Out. This is the same concept. A week out, you're going to be having two shows. It's a matter of, time more than money, because if you have the Impact Plus app or a YouTube app, you're able to consume this. But I would say this Multiverse show last year, if there was any indicator of the effort they're going to be putting into it, just as good as Forbidden Door. I think, Forbidden Door was kind of AEW's taking the shine away from Impact a little bit about what they're doing. But seeing this a couple months removed, seeing Impact New Japan Pro Wrestling work together in a collaborative way, I think it'd have a lot of weight. I think the show is going to be great. It's definitely worth the money on Fight or wherever you're buying on Bleacher Report. The Impact pay-per-view never disappoints.
Yeah, never does, man. And I think, I don't think that the Forbidden Door has to take away the shine. I think the Multiverse United show last year was great. I think this one's going to be equally great or better. I'm loving the crossover promotion, premium live events, man. And I hope to see more promotions cross promote, and maybe we get a little bit more. Maybe we get 3 promotions on one show, which from what it sounds like with. We might get some Stardom as well on the Multiverse, which would be really cool.
So speaking of Deonna Purrazzo, she was celebrating an important life milestone on social media Monday night, revealing she graduated from college. So congrats to Deonna Purrazzo. She earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in history from Southern New Hampshire University. She was very thankful about the moment. It took her a little bit to get there. She said 10 years exact. I mean, by balancing work, school, and pro wrestling into all of those things. We understand school could be hectic, but this was something she kind of circled as a goal of hers. And, furthering education, understanding the importance of it. Good for Deonna Purrazzo. I love to see this where maybe college education wasn't something she really needed to continue to pursue a career in wrestling at a high level, but she obviously wanted to continue to do this, and it's awesome to see. So congrats to Deonna Purrazzo. I want to use this platform to say that, because it's always a good thing to see someone reach a goal like that, because getting a college degree, especially a Bachelor of Arts degree in history, no easy feat.
Yeah, congrats to Deonna Purrazzo. You achieved so much in your professional wrestling career, and you're still achieving goals outside of that realm. That's always cool to see.
And then the final thing here is another match announced for Multiverse United. This was announced tonight, so I've dropped it in the news just to kind of put a nice little bow on it. It's going to be Impact versus TMDK. Moose and Eddie Edwards are going to unite to battle Zack Sabre Jr. and Shane Haste at the event. So we know that Moose and Eddie Edwards are longtime rivals. They've had a history in the ring against each other, but they're going to put their differences aside in the name of what Impact's calling brand supremacy. So they're going to be taking on Zack Sabre Jr. and Shane Haste. TMDK is obviously their uniting factor. So pretty cool to see. And again, the Multiverse United show leaves a lot to interpretation about how these matches are going to be booked. I think a lot of times they're trying their best to put very interesting mashups of different talent. I think this is one of those situations, seeing ZSJ and Eddie Edwards and Moose. It's going to make for a fun tag team match, if not for anything else.
Yeah, this match right here is enough for me to buy the card, man. This is going to be a cool one. Interesting pairing, getting Moose and Eddie Edwards together. But yeah, it's the whole point of a cross promotion card is to see which brand is better, right? So Barry put aside some old battle axes and team up for the to bring home the win for Impact.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because they, for anyone to represent Impact as far as they call it, brand supremacy. I know that's like a WWE term, but TMDK is a pretty successful New Japan Pro Wrestling faction. So kayfabe wise, you got to put the advantage to Zack Sabre Jr. and Shane Haste. They know each other very well, and we'll see if Moose and Eddie Edwards, are they going to advance a program? Are they going to continue the rivalry following this? Or are they going to form a union? It has me intrigued at the very least.
Yeah, me too. And I think it's very timely considering that, we don't really, Eddie's finished up, it seems like, for the most part, his feud with Frankie Kazarian. He's really just kind of been running around with Alicia while she cuts promos on Tracy. So this might be something long-term for him with Moose, even after the pay-per-view.
All right. Well, that being said, let's get to the blow by blow and talk about all the Impact action on AXS from tonight. Go match by match, segment by segment, and give you guys all you need to know about tonight. Impact results.
Blow by blow.
All right, Colton, as we open up our show, of course, this is part of the Chicago Heat tapings. And I got to say, prior to us even talking about the results, it's interesting because if you look at spoilers and match listings, for whatever reasons, no one posted the spoilers of night one, but you could find night two's results. So if you're looking for next week's results of what's going on in Impact Wrestling, you can find those easily. But I could not find, even after the event, just to see like, all right, let me see the match order and make sure I have all my notes in order. There's no spoilers out there. So I don't know where they went, or maybe everyone's just living in the moment.
Yeah. That's weird, man. Yeah, hard to say. Or maybe there was just a much bigger crowd at night two than there was night one, and so I don't know. But hard to say. It's interesting how that's when you're in the world of pre-tapes, and it's interesting how it all shakes out because even the spoilers never seem to come down in the correct order.
No, I mean, we learned that the hard way with Ring of Honor, with like they would tape out of order almost just to fuck with us because like there'd be matches and match listings. And I understand they were trying to capture the crowd at the right moment. Sometimes it was less full. They didn't want the main event to look lesser than, so they would like throw the main event in the second match or the first match on the card. And Impact was doing the same. But for the most part, this crowd in Chicago was pretty hot. Cicero Stadium, awesome venue. Definitely felt different than some of the other crowds we've had for Impact Wrestling. I thought the atmosphere was there, and they were trying to keep pace with what we saw in Windsor for Slammiversary week and all that stuff. So I gotta say, I like these group tapings that they have in the different cities, and it kind of builds a special feel for every time Impact comes to your town. You're going to get a group of tapings. We're going to see the city get showcased for a few weeks in a row, and the same was said about in Chicago for this week, starting with their first half of the Chicago Heat tapings.
Yeah, man, it's a smart setup, and no other promotion is really doing it at this point. You know, where you might come in and tape multiple shows in the same night, but doing multi nights in each town is, I think it's a great strategy, man. And you know, it's Impact's the only people doing it, and it's working out for them.
And to have like the overall arching name of the tapings, it's like we know this is taped. Come out and enjoy a weekend of pro wrestling with Impact Wrestling and kind of enjoy what we're doing here. I like it. They lean so into the tapings that I don't know. They do such a good job of capturing the feel of a wrestling show and making it fun despite being taped. Because if you compare what we were covering for ROH and this, it might just because of the long drawn out nature of the nights for AEW tapings. It's one of 3 tapings, something like that. This just feels certainly different. This is kind of what we wanted RH to be, and we were trying to like kind of will it to be that. It just wasn't. Impact, you could tell the fans are there to just enjoy Impact Wrestling. They're very familiar with the characters and they're energetic. And I think that's also, it adds to the atmosphere that these Impact fans have developed a very passionate fan base, and they show out, and Chicago was no different.
Yeah, man. I mean, Chicago's always a good town for Impact. I mean, a good town for wrestling in general. But, you know, the fact that they give these tapings, you know, they do a 2-day setup and they give most of the tapings like their own little, you know, unique name, almost like a premium live event, it just makes it feel that much more special to the fans and you know, the local groups of folks who are out there, you know, to see the show. And yeah, it's a good crowd tonight for sure.
So the crowd was really excited to see Trinity coming out to open the show. She cut a promo talking about how Chicago was important to her. She said she made her Impact debut there a few months, and Trinity said that last time she was there, she promised she would come back as Knockouts champion, and there she was, pointing to the belt. Before she get too far into the promo, talking about, you know, rebuilding her love for pro wrestling, how Impact has helped rejuvenate her, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. I really do. I don't think that. I mean, a lot of it was playing a character and probably hyping it up, but there were reports that Trinity wanted to kind of leave the wrestling business at large, and Impact, before we get into, you know, Deonna Purrazzo coming out, but I don't know if you felt the genuine nature of her promo here, because it felt like she was speaking from the heart.
Yeah, I thought it was super genuine, man. I mean, you could hear the emotion in her voice when she said, you know, at her lowest point, she was really, you know, thinking about hanging up her wrestling career, which is just the thought of that for me is heartbreaking, because Trinity is such an incredible talent and has so much to offer. I feel like she's really just kind of getting started, and I'm so happy that Impact is where she landed, man. Yeah, I thought this promo was great, and you know, she really had the crowd in the palm of her hand, you know, and they were right there along with her. They were so excited to see her come out with that belt tonight.
So Deonna Purrazzo interrupted her, and she made her way down to the ring, and she was pretty much led to "you tapped out" chants from the crowd. And you know, she noted and acknowledged that, like, okay, yeah, I did lose, but no one has beat me twice, kind of building up a little bit of leverage towards that emergence match. And Trinity said that she would. After this, though, we get the Coven. Before we have this like nice moment between two people that respect each other, the Coven coming out, and they kind of ruin this moment for both Trinity and Purrazzo. They both look annoyed, and they look at each other and like, okay, so we don't like each other, I guess, specifically, and we are wanting the same thing. We want to be champions, and we want to make sure we are continuing our feud. But we have this group of the Coven. Like, they're clearly not people that we want to run the Impact Women's Division, and uniting them against. What are your thoughts on this? Because we get this opening match between the Coven and Trinity and Deonna Purrazzo, and the finish is one thing, Colton, but this was interesting to me because having them go into emergence as sort of these like respected rivals, but they kind of on the same side of the fence, was a little bit interesting to me.
Yeah, same here. It was a interesting choice, especially for, I don't know. It seemed like it would have been 2 weeks worth of storytelling and booking, just all kind of crammed into the first 10 minutes of tonight's show. You know, I mean, I like the fact that Deonna came out, talked about her contractual, you know, rematch, and setting herself up, saying you're not going to beat me a second time. I think we could have just wrapped with that and been fine, and maybe gotten Kylan King involved later down the line. But the whole thing just kind of seemed a little rushed, and frankly a little unnecessary to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Santino Marella. So, you know, when he comes out and says, you know, hey, it sounds like you guys are looking for a fight. Let's have you know, Trinity and Deonna tag against the Coven. They say they're going to do it later tonight. Deanna says, look, I don't need gear. I can go right now. He asked the crowd if they want it now. I mean, I absolutely, that's one of my favorite things about going to Impact shows is they're always very aware of the crowd and like to get the crowd involved in the show. You know, it's not like this fourth wall kind of thing going on. They're always very involved with the crowd. And so, I mean, I thought the booking of it once we got there was good, but yeah, just interesting choice, man. I mean, they just talked about the fact that they're going to go head to head again. And now we got them teaming together. I mean, that seems we still got 3 weeks for this pay-per-view. We can throw them together in a team in another 2 weeks. Just seemed a little rushed to me.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think once we get to the finish of the match, that's even more confusing because we watched Deonna Purrazzo eat a pin going into her match against Trinity. And now Trinity, it's confusing, you know, at least to look at it optically, is that Trinity is now going against someone who was pinned on the other side. And I understand it was miscommunication to trying to breed that because Trinity hit Deonna by accident. And that's the story they're trying to tell. But if you look at it from this end of things, the Coven wind up winning the match. Kylan King and Taylor Wilde, it's a big win for them. But you have Trinity, and I think this is her first loss in Impact. I understand it's a tag match, but her first loss, and Deonna Purrazzo gets pinned going into what, in 2-3 weeks, we're going to have this Emergence pay-per-view. I don't know if it's the best look, but I mean, as far as match goes, it was pretty good. And star power of the women's division, you can tell it's all there. I mean, the depth, we talk about it every week. There's a lot of depth to be said about, you know, all different layers. I mean, the mid card, the tag division, the top of the card, absolutely crushed it. And this spoke volumes to me about how great and stacked the women's division was. But to me, I think we're on the same page with just a little bit how muddy this opening segment was. I think you probably could extend it to next week. And if it would have had a little bit more weight, watching Deonna lose and get pinned, I understand miscommunication all said, but I don't know. She's number one contender for the world title, but I don't know if I like her being pinned here.
No, I didn't really like it either. And I feel like if we'd have spread it out another week, it wouldn't have stung so much. You know, I mean, we're not too far removed from her loss at Slammiversary. So now that's two losses in a row for Deonna. And like you said, you know, Trinity didn't take the pin, but it's her first loss too, since she's come in, and she's pretty new into her reign. So yeah, I didn't think it was exactly necessary, a little muddy, but we'll see where they go with it.
So before moving on to the next match here, we have J-Bone in the chat. What's up, guys? And he also said, not sure if you all talked about it, but a huge shout out to Tavern Fave Mark Bitters, ref debut on BTI. We did not mention it, but congrats to Mark Bitters. He's been on the debate a few times. Excellent Tavern alum here. So great to see him here in Impact. And he was also on that Treasure show. I know he was like selling the monster truck with the Macho Man hat. So he made his debut on there. So shout out to Mark Bitters. We love him here in the Tavern. So awesome to see. We have the Rascals backstage talk about their upcoming match with Mike Bailey and John Gresham. As we talked about at the start of the tournament, number one contenders, short tournament, 4 teams. Scott D'Amore, the thing I love about Impact, Colton, is that they reference stuff that's happened in the past. They treat fans like they're smart. Scott D'Amore references them coming back after being kicked out of the building and said, you're going to be fined for 2 weeks. You're going to pay for interfering in the matches last week. And if you do anything else, we're going to indefinitely suspend you. So that makes sense to me because you and I were talking about the week they showed back up. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. Now it kind of makes sense because Scott D'Amore came and made some logic of it.
Yeah, I like they don't really let much get past on Impact, man. They always find a way to bring it back around, at least in the following week, and make all the storylines line up. And man, Scott D'Amore just loves taking the piss out of the Rascals. He's having a great time with it, man. And I like seeing Scott D'Amore back in the role as president of the company. As much as I enjoyed his feud with Bully Ray and Macklin and Diener and the payoff at Slammiversary, it's really nice to see him back where we like him, kind of in the administrative side of things. But man, yeah, I love the Rascals promo. These guys are just great, just as good on the mic as they are in the ring. But yeah, man, it's just Scott D'Amore is quickly becoming their number one foe. He's just foiling them on every corner pretty much.
I like the accountability being held for not just the heels, but also the faces, that there's a strong line of leadership where, you know, the same can be said about officiating and just whoever's the commissioner or GM, however you want to do this like leadership trope they do in wrestling. I like consistency across the board where the Rascals broke the rules. They should be fine. We talked about this on Smoky Mountain Wrestling 1994. Chris Candido hit a pile driver. It was banned behind the ref's back. So they easily could have pretended that happened, but they treat people like they're smart. There's clearly people saw him hit the pile driver, so he was suspended. And I like this because there's some consistency and logic in wrestling. And this was a small example of it, but Impact does it so well every single week.
Yeah, the little reality in wrestling is a good thing, man. It goes a long way.
So we have Alicia Edwards and Eddie Edwards backstage, and Alicia was talking about Tracy Brooks and how she made her leave Impact. And Jody Threat walks up and she said, "You didn't do any of that. And I'm going to be challenging to a match in the near future." So we'll see what happens with Jody Threat. Got to say, big fan of Jody Threat. I like what they've been showcasing her. I think she's one of the bright spots of the women's division, and another, as we like to say, embarrassment of riches as far as the Impact women's division goes. They continue to show they have star after star, and then they have a pool of people they can call up if, say, there's an injury or, they need another main eventer. Any of these women can be called up and put on these great matches and great programs. And Jody Threat's just another example of that.
Absolutely, man. Very impressed with Jody Threat. I think we've seen her at least for a minute on TV ever since the Go Home episode before Slammiversary. So yeah, man, I'm excited to see her here, excited to see her continue to get pushed and showcased. And I think she'll have a hell of a match with Alicia next week.
So I'm curious to see your thoughts on this match next. Alan Angels and Heath. We were pretty high on Heath being pushed following his breakup with the design, and coming out of that, we thought maybe he'd have, you predicted him to win the number one contendership in the Ultimate X match, Slammiversary. Your thoughts on this?
Alan Angels, yeah.
Yeah, for Alan Angels. For Heath, though, did you feel, I don't know, did you feel a certain type of way about this match? Because I was thinking of you when I'm watching this. I'm like, I think Colton might be upset about the finish here.
I wasn't necessarily upset about it. I just thought it was an interesting choice. Heath is super over in Impact, man. He's one of Impact's favorite sons the last few years. And I know that they had a little bit of a build to this feud on BTI over the last week. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. I'm assuming this means that there's more meat on the bone between Heath and Alan Angels. I'm assuming that this isn't over because, Alan Angels is, I think a lot of people thought he could have been a top pick for the Ultimate X match at Slammiversary to win it. And he's a great talent, man. And not to take anything away from Heath, but he's a younger talent. He's separating from the design. Eric Young's back. He's got his whole own storyline going forward with the design. So I don't know. I thought it was a really interesting choice to have Heath go over here, and be interested to see if we see them going toe to toe again next week.
So, the timeline goes that Alan Angels left the design. I would say that's a babyface turn.
Mm-hmm.
Then it feels like he was kind of turned heel again with this new character. And maybe it's just because he's matched up with Heath and the crowd loves him, like you're saying, but this felt like a new complete character for him. I don't know if am I looking too much into it. It felt like a new, like, rock star like gimmick he was rocking during the show.
Well, and I will say that, and they did actually reference him, and I think that's been the exchange between him and Heath on BTI is, Heath is kind of the resident rock star of Impact, and now Alan Angels is trying to say he's the rock star. But we did definitely see some heel shit out of Alan Angels in the Ultimate X match. Like he dished out 2, maybe even 3 low blows, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Right.
And it's Ultimate X match, man. Anything goes, but he's the only one pulling those kind of tactics. So yeah, I think inherently it seemed like it would be a heel or a face move to leave the design, but I think it's really just he's just separating from the faction, and he's going to be a shit heel on his own. So yeah, I don't think I don't see him being a face by any means right now.
No, especially with the actions there. And I guess you could make the argument Chicago is very behind Heath, and that's the matchup. And sometimes we see that happen and they play to the crowd. But I think you're right. I think he never truly turned babyface. He just left the design. And that's consistency sometimes. You can have heels feuding with each other. That does live in its own little environment. And I think that's the case here, where I just worry, though. I worry about Alan Angels if he's going to be on his own as a lower tiered heel, I guess, because the depth they have in the Impact men's division maybe would be better off staying with the design just to kind of have that rub and tag matches, or just be at the corner of Dean or someone just at his side. So this way he has some exposure more often than not.
Yeah, I do worry about him getting lost in the sauce a little bit here, especially with, LIO Rush coming on and winning the belt. And Jake something returning. Like you said, the depth of the men's division, it's pretty well versed, and it's easy to get kind of lost in the shuffle if you're not 100% sure what you're trying to do.
So another backstage segment with GM Miller here, and Eric Young is referencing the elephant in the room. I mean, he was stabbed to death in a jail cell, but he's not dead. So they're going to kind of make right with that. Eric Young promised to show kind of unseen footage of what happened or what really happened that night. And he continued that he's not surprised by the design and what they continue to do, that I've always known who they are. But we'll get into the final video package that they show here. And I'm very curious your thoughts about the reasoning. I do appreciate that they're trying to tie loose ends up. Wrestling is wrestling, and sometimes you have to suspend belief, of course. But Eric Young cutting a promo here, and got to say, I love having him on our screen. So have him in any capacity. Eric Young being back in Impact completely emphasizes he made the right choice.
Yeah, most definitely, man. I'm super excited to have him back. And I like how, he was a little cryptic in his interview tonight. Gia came at him. She's like, well, what do you mean you have unseen footage? What are we going to see? And he was just like, the world will know what actually happened later tonight. And, he didn't drag the design straight through the mud either. He's like, look, man, I expected that to happen. He's like, anybody with a brain expected them to come after me sooner rather than later. He's like, I'm going to deal with them sooner rather than later. So yeah, I'm excited for what we've got to come for Eric Young.
And what we had to come for Davey Vega was not pretty. It was, though, an awesome squash match. Jake Something coming out and being showcased. Man, I got to say, this, as far as squash matches go, it's hard to do it right to make it memorable. This was an awesome squash match to the point where it made even Davey Vega kind of memorable in that role. And I'll explain why. I think him playing that role of refusing a handshake from Jake Something in the beginning kind of set the tone, like, oh, really? We're going to do this?
Yeah.
Just the presence of Jake Something, and he just proceeded to absolutely murder him, throw him around the ring every step of the way. Vega did try to get a sunset flip. Jake Something's like, what are we doing? Caught him, lifted him in the air, hit an absolute bomb of a forearm on him. Then he hits what I would call a Vader body press, and then screamed, what's his name? And the whole crowd, Chicago, amazing, screams something before he hit the black hole slam for the win. Great crowd involvement. Davey Vega made Jake Something. This is the perfect enhancement match. If you are looking for what the role of enhancement match could be on a card to get somebody over, this was the perfect example. But shout out to Davey Vega, of course. Shout out to Jake Something. He continues to impress, but we're very well done. I mean, this, if you blinked, you missed it, but this was so well done as far as development goes.
Oh yeah, man. You couldn't have got a more perfect squash match. And just the juxtaposition of the looks between, you look at Jake Something, you look at Davey Vega, man, and it's just Davey Vega looks like if you built a jobber on a creator wrestler video game, man. Like, you just put him up against this dude who's been, etched out of stone. It's it was good. It was quick, but it was good.
So the follow-up segment we had with Bully Ray, Moose, and Myers coming up to LIO Rush, and they're following up on last week. We talked about it last week at length, or I did, and I'm sure you watched it. LIO Rush made his decision that, but LIO Rush wants to make it clear that he's not in this faction with them. We're not friends. This was a business decision. And Moose reiterated that we don't have to be friends, and they just all need to be on the same page at Emergence. Bully Ray then said he just wanted Rush to experience the trust they had with each other. So now there's going to be that 6-man tag for next week, as I referenced before. Your thoughts on LIO Rush as far as this arrangement? I think everyone expected him to stay heel. It wouldn't have made sense for him to side with Sabin and Shelley. I think it's the right choice, but definitely is a mixed bag of different characters here at Bully Ray, Myers, and Moose, and now LIO Rush in the fold is this like group of just bad guys looking to get an edge.
Yeah, man, definitely an interesting pairing of just a hodgepodge of heels here, man. And I'm happy to see, I'm with you. It wouldn't have made any sense for LIO to not align himself with these guys. But yeah, he makes it very clear that, he's like, this isn't going to last long. And I love that Myers tells him to lose the fucking boo-boo face on his way out. That was great.
So good. And I'm curious to see where this goes. I mean, Bully Ray and Moose and Myers, like I said, they all kind of have their own track as far as, and maybe the Moose things continue with Eddie Edwards. I know he has the multiverse one stop with him. Maybe they continue that with Impact Canon, but maybe they do it as a one-off, or it's fascinating to me because LIO Rush, if healthy, and I think he is, and clearly, and we were kind of talking about that last week, there's the possibility that he was hurt. It's awesome to see him because it opens up so many doors, like main event, X Division, different feuds, tag teams. This guy is so multi-dimensional for your roster. And if, like we talked about, if he can kind of stay right mentally and physically, the sky's the limit. So, I mean, this is a good diverse way to use him. There's different matchups. And personally, I think if he might be the world champion, like I could see a world where they do that and kind of drive the wedge between Shelley and Saban down the line. And everyone thinks it's going to be Josh Alexander getting it back. Everyone thinks it's going to be between the Motor City Machine Guns. I could totally see LIO Rush running in there and kind of stealing the world title and being the heel everyone's trying to get after.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't surprise me one bit. I mean, especially he's already dropped the breadcrumbs of the fact that he might be a guy that would exercise option C. So yeah, it's the writing's already on the wall.
So Joe Hendry comes out to the ring, and we know we have this triple threat match for the Digital Media Championship. He does cut a promo before the match. He's explaining life is too short, and you should tell your friends what you think. And that includes letting your friends insert themselves in your contractually untitled rematch, which again, they're referencing kind of consistency here. Is he's been friends with Yuri Uemura for a bit now, and Yuri Uemura comes out and pretty much grabs the mic, and we're like, is he really going to cut a promo? He just turns to Joe Hendry and says, I am Yuri Uemura, champion. And the announcers sell it like it's the best promo. Loved it. I do like that they addressed it, because if this is his contractually obligated rematch, confusing as a guy who is a champion for a long time, he knows how that works. Why would he include another guy?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty selfless of him to do, man. I mean, obviously Joe Hendry's a good friend. Man, you talk about the crowd being hot tonight. I swear to God, every time Joe Hendry comes down that ramp, he just gets more and more over, man. I mean, they were all over it tonight. There was not a set of hands that weren't waving back and forth as Joe was coming down tonight. And yeah, but interesting setup with the triple threat.
They showed a graphic before the match that it was Uemura's first triple threat match ever. This is not his first multi-man match, as he did several of the Impact 6-person matches for title shots. So I thought that was a cool graphic to show, saying this was also the contractually obligated match for Joe Hendry to get his title back. Also had me thinking, and we were talking about this on Wrestling Tonight, just the aging superstars at the top of New Japan Pro Wrestling. The young star that Uemura could be, I think he could really help rebuild New Japan Pro Wrestling and be that guy. That it's putting a lot of praise on him to kind of take the mantle of a guy like Tanahashi, or take the mantle of, any of those guys. Okada is eventually going to wear down, and, eventually you're going to need somebody else. I think Uemura, young, he's a guy who's very charismatic, clearly. And I think if you kind of pair him with Tsuji, who's kind of, over there, and they've been teasing maybe him taking the title off Sonata. I don't know. And I understand the working relationship with Impact is getting Uemura some reps here. I could really see him in 4 or 5 years at the top of the card of New Japan Pro Wrestling as the IWGP World Champion. I know that's saying a lot, but that's what I kind of pulled from this match. Like, damn, I haven't seen that side of him, but he kind of carried this match, and that's saying a lot with Kenny King and Joe Hendry on the other side of it.
Yeah, most definitely, man. And, with it being his first triple threat match too, excuse me, he really showed out. I agree. I think he did carry the match. I really enjoyed this match, man. Like I said, when it was announced, I wasn't sure what to think with it, having Uemura in the mix here, but I thought this match was fantastic, man.
Yeah, Joe Hendry was singing his theme at one point, and then he was chopping Ua to the beat of the theme, which the fans loved.
So good.
And then King said the intro to his theme, and the fans are screaming with him, and kind of pretty awesome. And King playing to the crowd, saying that Chicago knows his theme and they're very familiar with his act. That was cool too. And this kind of shows what crowds can bring to the fold when they're interactive. And not to kind of rag on ROH, but like, this is the difference when you have an audience that is there strictly for these 2 nights of tapings for Chicago. They're all in, they know the deal, and they're into these characters. And this was a digital media championship, but by all accounts, this is a mid-card championship, but it felt like a big match here.
Yeah, this was definitely a big match, Phil. I was kind of surprised that it's spot on the card, to be honest. I thought
it was going to main tonight. I thought, for sure.
I did too, or at least second to last, maybe right before the tag match. So yeah, but it was a good match, man. I mean, there was a lot of close finishes here. My prediction after Joe lost his title to Kenny King at Slammiversary pre-show was that this wasn't over and Hendry's going to be back for the title. But man, King, he squeaked it out here, man. He shoved Uemura into Hendry and then hit a royal flush for the pinfall, which was which I thought was a great finish. I thought it could have gone. I didn't see it going on Yo Uemura, but I figured it could have gone either way between Kenny and Joe. And it'd be interesting to see where we go next. Do you think that Joe Hendry's on to bigger and better things, and he's done chasing the digital media championship for a while, or do you think there's a little bit more left on the table between him and Kenny King?
There's definitely some left on the table, especially with the way commentary was selling their history and talking about how, the stripper thing, it doesn't feel like it's over, especially too now that he can make the argument that I'm sure Santino or Scott D'Amore or someone will say he never really got his one-on-one matchup, and he was kind of screwed. Sheldon Jean got involved in the match. It was like a whole, a schmoz situation for Joe Hendry. And if he's a guy who was probably in recent memory the best digital media champion that's been on the roster, he deserves a one-on-one shot. And I could see that happening. But, selfishly, I kind of want him to move on to some other stuff. And I think there's other programs and other guys he can work with top of the card. I think he's ready for that. And if the digital media championship continues to be on the pre-show of these pay-per-views, I'd rather him at the top of the card, because we want live pay-per-view audiences singing his theme song. He doesn't need to be on pre-shows. I think he needs to be at the top of the card. I mean, at least close to it, because he's one of the most overacts in all of Impact Wrestling.
I agree, man. I think, and if we want to keep him in the chase for the digital media championship, that's fine. It's a fucking great looking belt. But let's take it off the pre-show. Let's get it in the middle of the card on these pay-per-views, if that's the way we're going to go with it.
So we had Gia Miller with Mike Bailey and John Gresham in the back. They're talking about their match with the Rascals in that tournament coming up. Mike Bailey was noting that Gresham was unhappy because the rules were not being enforced in Impact. Kind of a follow-up to that sit-down interview that we saw. I like what they're doing with this, and I like what they're doing with Gresham as far as being the anti-X Division guy. Maybe there's some weight to that. Very curious what they're going to do. And this is like almost the anti-pure. I mean, this is what he was doing in ROH. He wanted to reestablish pro wrestling rules, and he's just bringing that moniker over here. And I like this. I mean, Bailey and Gresham are an oddball pairing for sure. I mean, They both are very athletically gifted in their own ways, but you knew this was not going to work out well for them. And the Rascals, we'll talk about the main event, but this was a pretty good promo as far as Mike Bailey goes and John Gresham, not known as being promo guys, but short, sweet, and to the point. And I thought it was good.
Yeah, I did too, man. I enjoyed it.
So we had Josh Alexander, Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley, and Kushida talking about how they're on the same page for Emergence. Chris Sabin said that he would be the first ever 10-time X Division champion. Kushida looks at him and laughs with the X necklace on, saying maybe. So crazy to think that Chris Sabin is a 9-time X Division champion, and never mind 10. And I picture Triple H when he won the world title holding up his hands and puts the 10 up. But damn, 10 times for an X Division champion. I mean, the longevity of Chris Sabin is astounding, really.
Yeah, it really is, man. Because you look at him and the guy's been here for a while, but you don't look at him and think like, oh man, there's this guy's been champion 10 times. He looks like he's still got a ton left in the tank. I think it's inevitable. He's gonna. Wow, how could you deny Chris Sabin a 10th title reign? And man, Kushida's neck has got to be getting sore from wearing that giant X with the log chain around, man. But I mean, where else are you gonna put it? I guess.
They couldn't have found something different, like, the home run derby chain they were wearing or whatever. I think Marshawn Lynch came out with wearing in Seattle this year. They couldn't have found something like a little bit more wearable for Kushida.
A little less strenuous, yeah.
Crazy. But we had Kevin Kelly joining the commentary team talking about the G1 Climax 33 tournament that's been going on, and specifically the match between Jeff Cobb, Zack Sabre Jr., and also Eddie Kingston and Tomohiro Ishii. If you haven't been watching the G1 Climax, you're missing out on some great wrestling. Awesome seeing Eddie Kingston kind of live out his dream over there, doing his thing for the past couple weeks. But it's been great. So Kevin Kelly, I like that. I mean, the tie-in too. Kevin Kelly is one of the best announcers in all of wrestling. He is a guy that's on Collision full time now, but of course he's on a little sabbatical in Japan doing his thing, and we have some replacements for him. But the tie-in with New Japan Pro Wrestling and Impact fits so seamlessly that some of their characters being shown on the screen, you don't think twice about it. And I think that, they do a good job of introducing them to the Impact audience.
Yeah, no, not at all, man. It is pretty seamless. And, Impact, it helps that they have, both have a TV deal with AXS. So, we get a promo about, New Japan coming on afterwards at 10 p.m. almost every week, as long as there's time for it. So yeah, this was cool, man. A couple of dream matches there between Eddie and Ishii and Zack Sabre Jr. and Jeff Cobb. Those are going to be bangers.
I mean, I love those matchups too. And like, again, if you're not watching G1 Climax, what are you doing? Go get New Japan Pro, get New Japan World, like get it today and figure out 9.99 yen. Pop it on, man. I swear, this is the time. If you're ever going to have a time to watch New Japan Pro Wrestling, it could be around Wrestle Kingdom, maybe Dominion time, but there's no better than G1 Climax. I mean, there's a lot of wrestling to watch, but I'm telling you, it will not disappoint. You probably fall in love with the style of New Japan Pro Wrestling, at least the programming, because it's nonstop action. It really is. So we have the Death Dolls backstage talking about how they needed a game plan because they want to get into Knockouts tag team title match. They do since it's like a cinematic type of background thing, they get inside the huddle and the camera's underneath them. So now they're looking at getting a shot, and then they pull away from the camera. When the camera focuses in on the full picture again, there's Crazy Steve. They get shocked. Yeah, so this was just one of those other things to kind of show a little bit of a different goofy side of the Death Dolls, who continue to be entertaining, more depth to the women's tag division, and some more Crazy Steve, which I kind of enjoy Crazy Steve. I'm not sure how you feel about him.
I love Crazy Steve, man. He's awesome. I've been lucky enough to meet him in person at an OVW show, at a meet and greet before their 100th live show, and yeah, it's I'm happy to see him back, man. We haven't seen him in a while, and I always enjoy him and look forward to seeing more of him.
So in our main event tonight, we have the Rascals, of course, Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz taking on John Gresham and Mike Bailey. Gotta say, we talked about that triple threat digital media championship, maybe main eventing. This match was incredible. And I mean, you didn't think it wouldn't be incredible. Look at all the guys involved. The presentation, first and foremost, about the Rascals, they are just next level. They feel main event, just their entrance, it just feels big. And then add on top of it, John Gresham and Mike Bailey, who are two of the best stars in all wrestling. Mike Bailey, the BOLA winner from 2023. John Gresham, former ROH champion. Just entrances. And the other thing, speaking of entrances, Colton, we had John Gresham coming out with the foundation flag for John Gresham's old ROH group. Crazy that they even would allow that, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But also the smoke coming out of the octopus mask was so cool.
We were talking about this, week before last, or as it looked, we're like, it kind of looks like there's smoke coming out of the octopus mask, but we couldn't see any sort of apparatus. And so we saw to the top of the rope, and then we absolutely saw a ton of smoke come out of the mask when he got into the ring. So I don't know if brother's taking a huge bong rip or hitting a big vape right before he goes out, but like he did, I will say, when he took it off, he was definitely still exhaling smoke. So like he looked like his lungs were at capacity. Just what an athlete, man. Like I don't know what he's doing to get all that smoke before he heads to the ring, but it's pretty impressive to control his breath like that and release that much. But yeah, the foundation thing, man, I thought that was interesting too. I mean, Impact seems to be the promotion that is least territorial of having shit that's happened other places be displayed. But I mean, it's still kind of shocking to me, because, I mean, I don't think Ring of Honor, especially in its current presentation, is on the level of Impact, but, some people maybe would argue that it would be. So yeah, I don't know. I thought that was interesting. More breadcrumbs dropped from Jonathan Gresham, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him here, especially with the, like you mentioned earlier, the whole him being upset about the rules not being enforced, and now I'm not sure what that's about, and I'm excited to see what they say about it next week.
Maybe in his mind, he's representing the old ROH, so whatever ROH blossomed from the Tony Khan era is not the one he identifies with, and maybe he's waxing poetic about a time when rules were enforced, and that's when the foundation was running rampant over ROH. Who knows? But I think it also speaks to what you're saying, the creativity and the allowance of Impact to let their guys do what they want to do creatively and come out with whatever on their tights or come out with whatever kind of flag. And I think it's just part of the Impact kind of gives the autonomy to the wrestlers, and no one's nitpicking at Gorilla. Like, no, you can't come out with that. No, you can't wear that color. No, you can't do X, Y, and Z. I think maybe there's not much more to it than he just likes the design of the flag too. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it has any sort of motives, but I think it's sort of tied into John Gresham's separation of, he doesn't want to be associated with Impact, the lack of rules being followed.
Yeah, he's separating. Maybe I am reading into it a little bit too much. Maybe it's just him continuing to separate himself from the pack.
So we see the Rascals trying to cheat from the beginning. I mean, These dudes are just like, they can't be stopped. But Mike Bailey and John Gresham were very well aware this was happening. They were scouting them well, hit them with drop kicks to open up the match, and we didn't really slow down from there. So these guys just went at it full tilt, and this was just tag team wrestling 101. And for John Gresham and Mike Bailey not teaming often, I think they had teamed one other time before, if maybe on the build to Slammiversary, but they had no right being as cohesive as they were. Like, man, they kept pace with the Rascals. And I know you mentioned the stamina and the cardio of both these guys. It was evident that this is wrestling at the top of its level, and you're not going to find this level of tag match outside of like FTR main eventing a match. But if you didn't watch this, I'm telling you, go out of your way to check this out. Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz continue to just put on a show, and like it's so good to see them back. And I love Miguel's singles run as X Division. I love that. But with Wentz, it's a whole different presentation. It's big time.
Yeah, it's great to see them back together, man. I mean, this is their first tag match in Impact in over 3 years, and they have missed a beat. They've definitely, if anything, they've improved. And yeah, very impressed with Speedball and Gresham together, man. The tandem offense from these guys was really impressive. It was, and honestly, the Rascals, they still ended up cheating to win, man. Wentz got Miguel got the spray paint can and got Gresham in the eyes and still got a fistful of tights on top of that. As if spray painting him in the face wasn't enough, man. Let's just fucking add insult to injury here and grab a fistful of the tights for the win. But I thought that was incredibly good storytelling, man, because both teams showed out. But until the spray paint can came out, the last 5 minutes of that match, it looked like Speedball and Gresham had it, like they were going to take it, which would have been a huge upset, and considering the build for me. But yeah, I thought it was a great finish. I wonder if Scott D'Amore will have anything to say about it, man, because he sure hasn't let the Rascals get anything else past him since they've been back.
Oh yeah, I would imagine that Scott D'Amore has something to say about the finish here and at least hold them back, and we'll see who comes out of this tournament. I'd imagine it's going to be ABC versus the Rascals in some way, right? I mean, you would think it's going to wind up there unless the Rascals get in their way again. That's what leaves it so interesting here. But there were some spots in this match. I mean, most specifically, Miguel tying up Bailey's legs in the 4 and his arms behind and lifted him in the suplex and just nailed it. I mean, some of the spots in this match are insane. And then just the near falls too. And just the athleticism across the board. And you mentioned the finish. I thought it was well done too, because it really leaves, as a fan, you're frustrated because you're like, this match was so athletically gifted. They didn't need to cheat. Like, they won because they cheated, and it could have went both ways, but you're left watching through the lens of they could have won without cheating. And that's what makes it even more frustrating, because they did it. And then they, on top of it, after with the spray can, they continued by grabbing the tights because it wasn't enough. They want more and more and more. And to emphasize that we don't give a shit about the rules. And, John Gresham, again, this is how he loses. I mean, this is going to drive him into insanity.
Oh, most definitely, man. Yeah. Somebody is already hot about it being the number one victim of the evening of that type of behavior.
So our final segment of the night is this video that Eric Young promised. And it's, Diener supposedly killing Eric Young. This is how Eric Young was written off TV when he went back to WWE. And this whole build-up was kind of a revitalization of what we had seen all these months ago. Your thoughts on this? Because they kind of extended it where Eric Young, after Diener leaves the room, randomly wakes up and he's coughing up blood. So after that, he drags himself to a motorcycle. And then we get a narration by Eric Young saying, waxing poetic and pontificating about what it is to die, what it is to live. Is death final? Why are we scared of it? And he said, if that, death is final, but I'm not dead yet. And he said, a body can be disposed of, but an idea can't die. And I'm an idea and I will live forever. Okay. So I almost would rather them just ignored it altogether, because wrestling's wrestling, but the fact that they're acting like everything that happened in the in-between, that Diener and the design, like, just kind of left him there and he got back up and no one realized he was alive. I don't know, a little bit too much for me to kind of stretch my thought. It's mental gymnastics take a lot here.
Yeah. I'm usually very happy with anything that Impact puts together in this type of situation. And I didn't need this, man. I'm right there with you. They could have completely left it alone, and I would have been totally fine. I thought the after the credits phone call prior to Slammiversary from Scott D'Amore saying, if this time PCO can't come back from the dead, can you? That was enough of an explanation for me, especially because this was just kind of, it was just kind of. It almost seemed like the narration promo that Eric Young gave almost seemed like a goodbye to wrestling promo. Like it didn't leave me feeling with like somebody who's coming back to a promotion with unfinished business with with fucking scores to settle. It sounded like, I mean, so I'm just supposed to think that like for the past year and a half or so, or however long he's been gone, he's just been out riding his fucking Harley aimlessly. like I don't know, man. It just I'm with you. I would have rather either nothing at all or maybe some sort of resurrection ceremony. It didn't ruin it for me. Like I'm just, but it didn't hit for me either.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to sit here and say it ruined anything for me, but it's almost like just leave it alone. He came back. It didn't. Everyone popped for him. They were excited to see him. We saw him in action already. It's not like he didn't. Why try to put the toothpaste back into the tube? You don't have to. It already happened. So he was dead on TV. You wrote him off, but there's been stranger things in wrestling that have been kind of turned around, and it's not like his character is tied with being dead at one point.
Right.
It's not like he's the Undertaker being buried alive and now he's coming back as the dead guy after he was the biker, but which is ironic because he was riding a motorcycle, I guess. But it's just, I don't know. I thought it could have been done a little bit better, and just leave it alone. Like wrestling fans don't want to be. We all know he didn't die. That's the thing. Like, we all know that like he did not die, and I guess they wanted to fit it in a neat little box for the Impact universe, but it didn't need to be done. And in a lot of ways, it almost would have taken away from that really memorable moment, well-received moment. Everyone's kind of in shock when it first happened, when he was written off TV, and they were getting kind of applauded for this unique way of writing someone off TV instead of putting someone over. Like they literally let Diener kill him.
Yeah.
Kind of takes away from that moment now going back and watching it in the history, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. Because I mean, we've basically gone back and revised, but like we basically admit that we're revising the history now. Whereas previously, yeah, we all just assumed he was dead, but nobody ever showed a tombstone. Nobody ever showed an obituary. Like it was, he appeared to be dead. And the mystique of it was, with doing nothing at all, there was still a mystique about his return. And now it's a little muddy for me, man. And like I said, I don't think it was 100% necessary. Could have done without it.
No, I completely agree. We'll see where it goes from here, but I'm happy to have Eric Young back. So I want to say that up front. It's not that I just wish they probably would have left alone. I guess we'll leave it at that. But because it adds other questions, like where were you while the design was continuing to run all over the Impact roster and Diener was still being an asshole to everybody else? Like you're just going to let that happen to all your friends and family. And I don't know. It opens up all these questions and doors that don't need to be opened. Like, but interesting way to end the show. And
definitely,
I kind of wanted battery acid and electrocution. That's what I kind of wanted from PCO. So maybe PCO should have brought him back. Just show the highlight of PCO bringing him back like Frankenstein. I don't know.
Yeah, man. PCO, PCO coming back and like walking into the prison cell with a couple of car batteries and jumper cables and bringing him back.
I would have been in for that because that's Impact Wrestling, brother. That's Impact Wrestling. All right, let's get into impactful moment and talk about our match of the week or moment of the week.
Impactful.
All right, Colton, as we say goodbye to Impact on AXS for the first week in August, give me your favorite match of the week or your favorite segment. What you walked away kind of saying was the best?
Man, it was a toss-up between two matches for me, and I'm actually going to have to go with the triple threat for the Digital Media Championship, man. I really enjoyed that match. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And I mean, not that I had low expectations of it, but it really kind of, especially Yu Uemura's role in it, really kind of blew me away. And I'm excited to see where that story goes next.
Completely agree. I thought it was a big match feel. I have to go with the tag match, the Rascals against John Gresham and Mike Bailey. Pay-per-view quality tag match on our TV in a tape fashion with the crowd was excited. Chicago was hot for it. For the best athletes in all pro wrestling, presentation-wise, top-notch. Can't say enough good things about this match. go out of your way to check this out. Give me more Rascals. Give me more John Gresham. Give me more Mike Bailey. I think every wrestling approach would be better with guys like them in it. And man, the Rascals continue to show out, and it's a matter of time before those dudes are tag champs. Matter of time. So let's get into shock and awe, give our final wrap up as we get prepared for all of next week, the week coming up in the tavern, all the good stuff, all the shilling.
Shock and awe.
All right. We appreciate you guys as always for listening. Next week's show will be 8:10 for the weekly TV of Impact on AXS. We talk about all the latest news in Impact, tying in some Impact history to fill in some of the gaps. We got Emergence coming up, the Multiverse United show, whole bunch of things on the Impact calendar. But Colton, I pass it your way. I know you got a lot of good things on your calendar. The Kentucky Waterfall is back. Tell me about it.
Dude, yeah, the Kentucky Waterball is fresh. I'll give you all a little look-ski here.
Ooh.
Fresh and touched up. My hairdresser has just returned from maternity leave, so got my first fresh cut since late June. I know that we've been plugging a mullet competition off and on for months on every show that I've been on. Registration opened August 1st. I submitted my application today, so it looks like registration is going to be open for about a month. So voting is going to happen sometime in September. As soon as I've got a date and a link, I will spam the hell out of everybody with it. Please, bring a vote often and early, and see if we can bring this mullet trophy back home to the tavern.
We want it creating a ring of beer on our bar table, and we want to be having that behind the bar where we can reference it and people can hang lays on it. We want the mullet trophy behind the bar at the tavern. That's what we want. That's the move we want. I'm going to be voting a lot of times. I'm going to change my IP address. I'm going to figure out a way to get all the votes in. You guys
utilize
do the
your VPNs.
Thing. Exactly. With VPNs, log in, do your thing. Go to your local library, do some voting there. Go to your local colleges. Say you're looking to register for classes. Guess what? Go to the computer lab, vote for the mullet. At mullet.main to the Kentucky Waterfall. But you guys can also go on any of those computers to turnbuckletavern.com and make sure you guys check out all that we're giving you here on the build up to really the biggest show in wrestling history. We got headlined by Adam Cole and MJF, all in from Wembley Stadium in London, England. Of course, this weekend, SummerSlam from Detroit Ford Field. Wrestling is thriving, man. We got a lot of good stuff on the horizon. And, you and I pull the curtain back. We just finished recording all of Shot Nostalgia Season 4, Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And there was a letter from one of the episodes, might have been 6 or might have been 7, kind of blurs together because we did a nice little compact recording session talking about in 1994 how wrestling felt like it was dying. It was just coming from an editor of another wrestling magazine. That couldn't be further from the case as we sit here in 2023. Wrestling's in a better shape than it's ever been. And what a time to be a wrestling fan. I know that sounds cliche, but it really is such an exciting time where we can spend the time, an hour and change every week talking about Impact Wrestling and be entertained. And there's a lot of meat on the bone for a promotion like Impact that's continued to do its thing.
Yeah, man, you hear it all the time about how good of a time it is to be a wrestling fan, but it really is true, man, just for the sheer amount of content and the quality of it all as well, man. I mean, there's never been so much, so often. I mean, you could watch wrestling every single night of the week and still not consume all of it. And it's an incredible time, man. And yeah, Season 4, Shot of Nostalgia, Smoky Mountain Wrestling 1994. So yeah, we'll have episode 5 airing tomorrow. And then, man, this was an absolute blast, man. This is my first run on Shot of Nostalgia with Ace and Mike Belcaster. We had an absolute ball going through Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and stay tuned for season 5 because we're going to be covering Saturday night's main event. It's going to be a ball. I've got a very busy end of my summer, beginning of my fall, so I'm not going to be there for every episode, but I'm going to be there whenever I can. It's going to be, we're also going to have a few other fellows from the tavern subbing in. There's a lot of good stuff to go over. So yeah, stay with us, man. Keep jumping the DeLorean with us and go back in time, starting at 1985.
Absolutely. 1985. I got the physical copies of the newsletters that I'm going to be pouring through. It's going to be a different type of approach. And we only have the 2 actual tapings to talk about. So we don't know the length of the episodes. I know our last 2 episodes of Shot and Styles of season 4 were just above an hour. I know you guys are used to like 2 hours worth of content, but we segmented it. We really expanded the conversation to talk specifically about the months. And honestly, the impact that we see, pun intended, here on Brace for Impact, of the history of wrestling that it has on the future and the present of wrestling it's astounding. And as we continue to kind of dive through all these different catalogs, whether it be ECW 95, WCW 96, WWF 1998, Smoky Mountain Wrestling 1994, and it's just showing us that wrestling is best served to kind of learn from its past. And I think some of the stuff we see in the future, and of course you want to adapt and progress and all that, but the core of what wrestling is, it's pageantry, it's good guys versus bad guys, and it's emotion driven by combat in the ring. And same tales all the time, whether it's 2023 or 1903, it's the same thing, and it's great. So with that being said, Colt, anything else you want to give the audience here as we say goodbye for Thursday night?
Man, if you haven't seen any of Smoky Mountain Wrestling 1994 Season of Nostalgia Season 4, it's only 7 episodes. Like I said, episode 5 is dropping back. Get on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and check it out, man. It's been a good time. Some of the best storytelling in wrestling history.
Absolutely. And that being said, we'll see you guys next week, August 10th, next Thursday, same place, same time, 10:10 on Turnbuckle Tavern, anywhere you can find your audio next morning. So we'll catch you guys after a while. Peace.